everyone, welcome to the Movieception Show. I am Fariba, and today I'm going to do a whole breakdown and a discussion with regards to the big announcements that we got from Marvel Studios at San Diego Comic-Con. A lot of big announcements were made. I mean, I literally was at a party just scrolling down, and even I was quietly freaking out with a lot that came out tonight, just for like one single, I believe it was like an hour and 20-minute panel, and there was just so much to take in. So again, it's just a lot to unpack, so we're gonna take things down slowly. So let's get started with some of the big announcements, right? So let's start out with phase 4. So one of the big announcements that were made tonight, or a couple hours ago, from Kevin Feige, is that Phase 4 is about to end like this year. We weren't really sure before where Phase 4 was going to kind of conclude. Usually, it'll take about maybe 2-3 years in between movies to kind of wrap up a phase, right? And here, Kevin Feige officially announced that once She-Hulk and Wakanda Forever release, that will be the end of Phase 4. Of course, there's a lot of questions going on about, well, this is the stuff that we already gotten from Phase 4, right? It's like things aren't really making sense. We're not really sure how things are connecting. In one part we have the multiverse, another part we have the cosmology, and now again, and not just that, but we also kind of have like the religiosity with Khonshu and the Egyptian myths, and then of course just recently we just got the Greek gods. So there's definitely a lot of questions in terms of just like Phase 4 and just kind of what it is or what it's doing. But again, I think in terms of just Phase 4, it's kind of the setup of what's going to happen eventually, which we'll talk about in a second. But it was confirmed that Wakanda Forever will be the conclusion of Phase 4. So that was the first main announcement that was made tonight. So the second big announcement is in terms of Phase 5, which is probably making me even more excited. So before we even go anywhere, just in terms of just Phase 5, right, I'm going to pull out this image that was released from Marvel Studios. It was a quick update in regards to Phase 4 from Kevin Feige, right? But the big news, or one of the big news that came out tonight, was in terms of the projects that we're getting for Phase 5. And again, knowing that Wakanda Forever is going to conclude Phase 4, that meant that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium is going to begin Phase 5. So as we can see right here, Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to come out next year in, I believe, February. Yeah, so February. And then following that is that we're going to have Secret Invasions. They haven't really given an official release date for this, but it was kind of already known beforehand that Secret Invasions is going to come out in 2023, and now from this announcement, now we're told that it's going to be coming out in spring of 2023. So I'm going to assume that this is going to be right after Quantumania. I'm assuming it's going to be a March or April release. Again, and this is going to be a really interesting storyline, because again, I'm going to talk more about it in terms of when we get into more of the Phase 6 stuff, but it's going to be Secret Invasions. That's going to be with the Skrulls, or the Skrulls. We know that Nick Fury is going to be headlining this whole series, right? Because again, this is with the Skrulls. I'm going to assume maybe Captain Marvel might show up in this film. Oh, not film, but the series. Really, we didn't really get a lot of information in terms of Secret Invasions, but something again that we should definitely keep a lookout for. Next thing we are aware of is we're going to have Guardians of the Galaxy next year, and that's going to be the typical May release that we always get when it comes to Marvel series. I did watch a few clips from James Gunn, and this will be the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, right? This is the end. There's not going to be any more films after this. James Gunn confirmed this, and as he said, I believe in the panel, that it's going to be an emotional ride. As to what it's going to be, I don't know. It sounds as if there's also going to be a lot more deaths in this, in this film. They also confirmed that Gamora, or at least the version of Gamora that survived in Endgame, the 2014 version, the one who never really met Star-Lord, or gone through that whole timeline where she eventually meets Star-Lord. That's a whole, different Gamora that we're dealing with. And apparently, this Gamora is now working with the Ravagers, so that's going to be an interesting take. But we're finally getting some answers. Where's Gamora? For the film, so that's something that I'm very intrigued to see. And I know there was kind of a leak that dropped in terms of, I believe, the first look or first peek of the movie, and I believe we actually saw a little baby Rocket, and it seems, and again, you can see how sad and scared he looks, and I know a lot of people are talking about this on Twitter. So I wonder where they're kind of going with this movie, because it sounds as if there's going to also be a few flashback scenes. And of course, we're gonna have Adam Warlock in this film. I don't believe there's been any sort of image or something like that in terms of Will Poulter's portrayal as Adam Warlock, but I'm very interested to see kind of how he plays into the film. But that has also been announced right there, and of course we got Echo right there. So again, there wasn't really any big announcements in terms of that. Loki season 2, I believe that's kind of what they started off the whole panel with, and that was again something that we kind of already have prior knowledge of. The Marvels, again, there wasn't really any updates with regards to this, aside from the fact that Brie Larson, to Yanoa Parrish, and Iman Vellani are all going to reprise their roles for this film. And again, it's going to be the Marvel. In terms of Blade, we finally got a release date, I believe, because I don't think we had an official release date prior to this, prior to the panel, and that is that Blade. Let's redo that. So it looks like we've definitely got a lot more updates in terms of Blade. I mean, this was something that was announced way back in 2019 that we're going to have a Blade movie starring Mahershala Ali as a titular character, but we never really got any release date prior to this panel. And it sounds as if we're actually going to have a Blade movie for sure, and that is that it's going to now release in November of next year. So I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen with that. There wasn't really any synopsis or just any sort of additional information in terms of what this film is going to be, but I'm very intrigued to see if Dean Whitman's going to show up, because of the whole connection that happened between him and Blade in Eternals, and I think that's like the only time we kind of have not even really a glimpse, because he never really shows up in the screen, but we can hear him from the background. We can hear Mahershala Ali's voice in the background as Blade. So I wonder what's going to happen with that. And I know there was kind of the leak in terms of the trademarks, and apparently there's going to be a Midnight Sun movie, or at least Marvel had trademarked Midnight Sun. So I'm going to assume that we're going to see kind of a team up with Dane Whitman, Blade, and maybe potentially Moon Knight. I mean, there wasn't really any updates with regards to Moon Knight either. So I wonder if that's going to be it. But there was a couple, projects that they didn't really announce in this panel, and which they're actually holding off till D23. So I wonder if that's going to be it right there. But I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen with Blade, because we're finally getting a lot more information about this, and now it sounds like it is finally happening. It's going to be going to production soon, hopefully, if it's going to have that November release date. So definitely intrigued by that. Of course, we also have the Ironheart movie that's coming out. I don't think we really got any additional information aside from maybe when it's going to come out, and it sounds like it's going to come out fall of next year as well, or fall next year, so fall of next year. Now, this is where we actually got a lot more of the big announcements, new announcements that we never really got any additional information for, right? So first off, we're going to start off with Agatha, and that is that we now have a longer title for this. So now it is called Agatha Harkness. I believe it's called it is Covent of Chaos. So they put that in between 2023 to 2024. I'm very intrigued by this because, of course, this series was kind of put into place right after WandaVision, and considering what happened to Wanda and Doctor Strange, we don't know what, how her presumed death would affect Agatha. Like, has the spell broken now? Does that mean she's now set free? We don't know anything about that, right? So, but I'm very intrigued to see what this series is going to be about. But yeah, that's one of the more newer announcements we got from this panel. Never really got any information about until just about a couple hours ago. Is basically the official title for the Captain America 4 film that we all know is going to actually feature Sam Wilson as in his moniker as Captain America, and now we know that the movie title is going to be called New World Order. That's going to be coming out in 2024. I know a couple weeks ago we just learned that they had just gotten a director, so this seems like this is going to be starting sometime the film is going to probably start sometime next year. But yeah, that's going to be a thing now, and again, I'm very intrigued to see kind of Sam Wilson's persona as the Captain America. So that's a bit of exciting news right there. And then of course we got some two major announcements in regards to Phase 5. And I'm going to skip over one of them just a little bit, but the one that we're going to talk about briefly is Thunderball. That's going to be a thing now. I believe it's kind of just something that's been implied for a little bit because of some of the characters that have actually shown up in the MCU thus far. We even have the Valentina lady. I can't remember. I think it's like Valentina Allegra de Fontaine from the Falcon and Winter Soldier. She was very, very, suspicious, and it sounded as if she's kind of recruiting something for her own team or something like that. For one part, she did get John Walker. And then we've kind of also see some subtle clues of other characters who could, show up in this Thunderbolt team up, like Yelena or Baron Zemo. I believe. I can't remember who else, but like Ghost for one thing, right? But now it sounds like what we thought was kind of rumors are now true, and that is that we're going to have a Thunderbolt movie. That sounds as if it's going to be again a team up, almost kind of like the Suicide Squad version in a sense, I guess. Not like, I mean, they're not essentially villains, but also they're not the most heroic type. They're kind of the anti-heroes per se. So I'm very interested to see kind of how they're going to try and do this movie and kind of how it's going to fit with everything that's going to happen in terms of this saga, right? And we'll talk more about the saga name in a second. And of course, the big announcement that really, really got me super, super excited is we're finally getting Daredevil back. He's coming back. They're doing, I guess, like a soft reboot. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say, but they're doing a Daredevil series. It's going to be an 18-episode series, so thank God it's not going to be 6 episodes. Man, we're finally getting away from the whole 6-episode pattern that's been really ridiculous. But we're actually getting 18 episodes for this one season. Again, we don't know how the series is going to go, but we are getting the Daredevil back, and they have named it Daredevil Born Again, which I'm assuming is kind of a reference to the fact that, we had the 3 seasons of Daredevil that Netflix had produced and distributed on their site before they lost the rights and then went back to Disney, and then they dropped it on Disney Plus. And of course, we now know that Charlie Cox, again, he's now in the MCU, right? So he's reprising Daredevil, which again, I'm super excited to see him come back and play as. And they also announced that we're also going to be having Charlie D'Onofrio also returning as Kingpin. So I guess that kind of confirms that Kingpin didn't really die in Hawkeye, or at least like Maya didn't really kill him, or he somehow survived. We don't know how or why or whatnot, but it's a thing. It's going to happen, and we're going to actually have another what it seems like to be another face-off between Daredevil and Kingpin. Now, I do have a lot of questions in regards to this because, again, we already had the Netflix series that had the 3 seasons, right? And initially there was I believe the creators were actually working on the fourth season until the unexpected cancellation that happened, right? More so because of the whole right situation. And now it's kind of like, okay, what does Born Again imply? Is it implying the fact that it is now kind of a revival of what happened from Netflix? Or are they going to reduce certain parts of the storyline? Or are they going to, like, kind of just retcon a lot of Daredevil's past story arcs from the Netflix series and kind of just revamp it a little bit in Daredevil's whole arc in the MCU? There's a lot of grayness in terms of what's going on in terms of Daredevil and how and where and what bits and pieces of his story fits in the MCU and also is not in the MCU, just again because of the whole Netflix situation and that again we had the series and that was canceled, and now it's like it's back with the same actors, but now it's just kind of like, okay, what part of his story is going to remain intact? So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this. Again, we already know that Daredevil is going to show up in She-Hulk, so that's going to be his second appearance in the MCU, not his first, second, because he did show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's going to be one part. Maybe that's going to kind of help answer a lot of the big questions that we have, and just a lot of the big rabbit hole, just what's going on with the whole arc for Daredevil. But also not just that, but we're gonna, and I believe he's also gonna show up in Echo as well. So we're gonna have him show up 3 times in the MCU before he actually has his own actual series. So I wonder if that's going to be kind of the solution to just understanding what parts of his story that has already been done is going to remain and what's not going to be, it's not going to stay, right? But yeah, that's all I have to say about Daredevil. Again, I'm super excited and just so happy that we're finally getting a Daredevil series. We've asked for this, we wanted this, especially once he showed up in No Way Home. It was just kind of like, you can't just do the injustice on him and not have an actual whole series or / movie dedicated to him. And now we know that there is going to be a series focused on him. So I'm super, super excited to kind of see what's going to happen. I'm going to have some reservations as well, just kind of keep my hype a bit under the wraps, or not just on the wraps, but try to not be too excited, just because, again, now we have Marvel taking over. It's just like, okay, what's going to happen then and how they're going to try and execute it. I'm very curious about that, but that's it. That's the Phase 5 announcements that we got in terms of, everything we got from the panel. But that's not all. There was more announcements, so let's get into the Phase 6 stuff. Here is kind of a great snippet from Rotten Tomatoes that just gave a gist of the Phase 6 announcements, because they didn't just do the Phase 4 announcement, they didn't just have the Phase 5 announcements, they also had Phase 6 announcements. So this is kind of getting really insane. I mean, they've basically set the blueprint for this saga from now, or last year, up until 2025. So let's break down the big news, because the Phase 6 stuff was the one that really got everyone just out of this world, right? Everyone just lost it. So the first big announcement that they finally talked about was the Fantastic Four movie. We're finally getting an announcement that it's going to come out in 2024. So that's going to be in about 2 years from now, which, I mean, it's going to be quite the wait, but they didn't really go much in depth in the terms of it, but we do have a release date now, and that means we can now set the countdown for the Fantastic Four film. It's now going to be, I believe, the 3rd iteration of this, because I know there was the one with Chris Evans version, but even though there was a sequel, that's kind of like the first version. Then we had the one with Miles Teller, and that one was just a big mess. And now this is now going to be the 3rd take on the Fantastic Four team, and hopefully Marvel can actually get this down pat. There hasn't been really any big news about it. We don't really have the casting yet, although there has been rumors in terms of the fact that I believe, I can't remember who it was, but it's the guy from You, Penn Badgley. There you go. Penn Badgley apparently has been rumored to be casted for Mr. Fantastic, which I know a lot of people were kind of, again, confused about, because apparently, again, we did see Mr. Fantastic show up in the MCU. That is in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, which was played by John Krasinski, but it sounds as if that was just a one and done thing. It was just for fan service. We don't know exactly what's going on in terms of the casting for Fantastic Four, but it does also sound as if they have already set in place who is playing who's going to play the Thing, who's going to play Johnny, who's going to play Sue, who's going to play Mr. Fantastic. But in this panel, they never really gone into the details of the casting itself. It seems like they're going to keep that hush until, I believe, September for D23. That's what basically what I've been hearing, is that anything that isn't already announced in terms of this panel, in terms of what happened in this panel in San Diego Comic-Con, it's going to be announced at D23. Anything, and I believe anything that's, hasn't been prior knowledge before, it's all going to be kept for D23. So I'm very curious to see who's going to be playing who in this film. I know a lot of people were hyped about this. We are going to get the Fantastic Four movie for sure. It is dropping in 2024, and they're going to be launching Phase 6. So Phase 6 is going to be, it seems like Phase 6 is going to be the stepping stone for everything, right? Or Phase 5 is going to be a stepping stone, and Phase 6 is going to be just the beginning of the end, I guess. I guess I can say that, but that's going to really break down everything in terms of Phase 6, right? Like, that was already the big announcement in terms of Phase 6, right? And then, here's what happened. For so many years, at least since 2019, right, we've been told there's not going to be any more Avengers movies, right? Although, again, we called the bluff on this. We all expected there's going to be more Avengers movies, even though a lot of the original Avengers had concluded their arc in some form, some way, with the team, right? And now, it was announced that not only are we getting one Avengers movie, we're getting 2 Avengers movies. And not just in any year, but in the same year. This one really got me just ecstatic. I mean, again, for the most part, we kind of already heard a bit of this leak of the trademark in regards to the fact that Disney had trademarked these 2 movies. One is going to be Kong Dynasty, the other one's going to be Secret Wars. I mean, I kept my reservations about this just to kind of, keep my expectations, low, in case if anything were to happen, or if, something else. Again, I just didn't want to be too, I didn't want to keep my expectations too high, but having heard the news of the Avengers movies, I completely lost it. I mean, I was at a party, as I mentioned before. If I didn't mention it, I was at a party when this whole panel was happening, and so I had to kind of quietly get the updates regards to the whole panel. And when I heard that the Avengers movies were going to happen, I literally had to quietly freak out. But yeah, we are getting Avengers movies, 2 Avengers movies in 1 year. And that's going to be in 2025. The first one's going to be coming out in May 2nd, 2025, and it's called Kong Dynasty, which I feel like a lot of us have suspected that Kong was going to be the next big bad, and it sounds like that's kind of the direction they're going with. Again, Kong's going to show up in Quantumania. There was a variant of him that showed up in Loki, and I'm going to assume that he might also show up in season 2 of Loki. We never really got any updates regards to that, aside from the fact that we're getting a season 2, and that's going to come out sometime next year. But now it seems like Kong is going to be the big deal in this whole saga, right? So that was the first part, and then we're getting it. We are getting a Secret Wars movie, which again we all kind of suspected was going to happen, just especially with the whole direction that the MCU has been going since it started, since this new saga had started. And it is called Avengers Secret Wars, and it's coming out in November of that same year. So we're getting, I guess it's kind of like doing a part 1, part 2 in a sense, like the way Infinity Endgame were. Maybe, I can't really say for sure, but we are getting 2 Avengers movies in the same year. But then again, anything could change. So I'm not going to keep, I think anything that we got this far in, considering Phase 6, things could change. So I'm suspecting that all of the release dates might kind of start changing around in the next year or so. So I'm not gonna keep my hopes with that. But with what we have now, we have 2 Avengers movies coming out in 2025, and one of them again is going to be Secret Wars, which I'm very intrigued if it's gonna be the more school stuff, or if it's gonna incorporate more of the multiverse stuff. I am very, very curious. Movies, right? There have been a lot of talks about whether or not the Russo brothers would return as directors for any of the future Avengers movies. And it has already been confirmed that they're not going to be involved in either one of these Avengers movies. So they will not be, directing this film like the way they did Infinity War Endgame. So I'm very curious who they're going to cast, or who they're going to sign up as a director to basically take the realm of this, right? And as we see in Infinity War Endgame, this is not going to be an easy task, right? This is going to be a major, major, major movie that you would have to find the right director for. As to who, I can't say for sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're putting John Watts into the list, but again, I'm very intrigued if he'll be the right director for it. I think I've heard Taika Waititi's name kind of pop up a little bit here and there. I don't know who else would be involved, but I am very curious to see who's going to take up the 2 projects, and I'm going to assume it's going to be maybe the same director taking up both films, because it sounds like it's going to be a back-to-back type of film. So one's going to kind of be like it's part 1, and the other one's going to be a part 2. But we are going to have the Secret Wars film. I'm very excited for this. I mean, again, I literally was freaking out when I heard this announcement. And now, with that being said, you can also see from this whole chart, there are a couple of blanks. We do have a couple of release dates, but we don't know what those release dates are for. And if you count it, it is for 8 projects. And from what we've heard, these 8 projects will not be announced until D23, which is going to be in September. So I'm going to assume that we're going to have a couple more announcements from there. That's where we're really going to have the good stuff. Impressive that they've already set the whole course of the saga up until 2025, and have already basically planned out phase 4, 5, and 6 for this whole saga. And now we're also going to have 8 more additional projects. Again, we don't know what they are. I'm going to suspect one of them is going to be the X-Men or mutant sort of film. Again, there's been a lot of rumors about it, but there hasn't been an official announcement about it. So I'm very curious to see if that's going to be one of them. I don't know what else is going to take its place. So I don't know what the other 7 is going to be. So I don't know. Maybe we might have a second season from the already done, the shows that already come out already. Maybe we might have the Scarlet Witch solo movie that has been rumored. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with the remaining 7 projects here, but I feel like the one I'm most sure about is going to be the X-Men. I feel like that's the only thing that makes sense. But yeah, this was definitely one of the big ones from the big announcements that came out tonight or a couple hours ago in terms of the Marvel scheduling from now and up until 2025. I think we finally got an official name in terms of this whole saga, and again, this was kind of revealed in the trademark, but if you weren't already aware beforehand, or at least from yesterday, we now know that this saga is called the Multiverse Saga. So we had the Infinity War saga that was from Iron Man up until, I believe, they marked it to Far From Home or Black Widow. I can't remember. I think Far From Home was the end of the Infinity Saga, and then Black Widow was supposed to have started the Multiverse Saga, but then it ended up being WandaVision, I think. I think that's what ended up happening. I can't remember right now, but from the top of my head. But for sure, we're getting the multiverse. We have this whole Multiverse Saga, and it intrigues me because we've been hearing about it, we've been seeing it, but it hasn't really been explained too well thus far into, at least from phase 4, which is about to end very soon. We got a glimpse of it in Loki. It was subtly mentioned in WandaVision. It was covered quite a lot in No Way Home. We saw kind of just what it is, but never got the explanation for it. And then we had Doctor Strange, which kind of more in depth in terms of it, but didn't really go into the explanation again. So I wonder if one of those films is actually going to be Doctor Strange 3 film. That could be a good explanation for it, because we do know that the film ended off with Doctor Strange encountering Clea, and Clea was telling him that he created an incursion and therefore he needs to go and help her fix it, or so-called fix it. So I'm curious if one of them is going to be Doctor Strange 3, maybe. I can't say for sure, but yeah, it is called the Multiverse Saga, so that means that we're definitely going to be having a lot more of the multiverse aspects going on in not just this phase, but even in phase 5 and probably in phase 6. If it's called the Multiverse Saga, right? I'm assuming we're going to see more variants, perhaps, because again, it says multiverse. We might meet variants. It's possible that maybe that's kind of how we're going to meet some of the more newer characters that haven't already joined the MCU, and maybe that's going to, set things up. Maybe that might help explain stuff for the Daredevil situation. Who knows? But yeah, no, it's called the Multiverse Saga. We know that means that just implies that this whole everything that we've seen so far is going to kind of focus on the multiversal concept, right? So I'm very intrigued to see I wonder how they're going to try and reach for the big picture in terms of the Multiverse Saga, right? We don't know exactly what their vision is or what their end game is going to be for it, but having seen all these announcements, it's definitely giving me a lot more hope in terms of what to see in the future, because again, Phase 4 has been a bit confusing, for sure. I mean, we're seeing so many different things, and we're not really seeing how things are connecting together. But even with that being said, right, these announcements have really kept me excited, and I'm just, again, they really, really took it to a whole new level with this panel. I mean, we thought 2019 was going to be the biggest thing they've done. I mean, here we are in 2022, San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Studios is back, and there you have it. They once again exceeded expectations in terms of this panel. I don't recall there was any other big announcements aside from that, but again, these were the big news. I mean, the Phase 6 up were the biggest news from the panel, which again, I literally lost it. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say in terms of everything that we got from San Diego Comic-Con, but it definitely has kind of not enlightened everyone, but it definitely has brought back a lot of the momentum from the fans who, again, have been feeling really confused, and now it's like, having seen these announcements, people are excited again to see what's going to happen in the MCU. I think a couple other announcements were made that Neymar is going to now show up. I mean, that was kind of the worst kept secret, but we kind of already knew that Neymar was going to show up in Wakanda Forever, but they officially announced that Tanush Huarte is going to play Neymar in Wakanda Forever. They also announced that Maria Bakalova from, if you recall her from the Borat 2 film, she's now going to be playing Cosmo, so that's going to be an interesting thing going on. I believe that's a dog too, so interesting. What else? Was there any other big announcements? I can't recall anything else. Again, there was just so much happening in terms of everything that Kevin Feige had dropped. But yeah, I'm super excited to see how all of this will transpire, how they're going to try and put into the big screen, whether it be on Disney Plus or in theaters. But yeah, that's all I can really say about it. Again, I'm just super stoked that we're getting Avengers movies, and not just any Avengers movies, but we're getting a Secret Wars movie. But yeah, that's all I really have to say, because again, it is super late at night. These announcements came a couple hours ago, and yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of talks about literally just Marvel once again just being the best of the best at San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, let me know what you think. Were you just as excited as I am? Has this really revitalized kind of your opinions about the MCU? Were you kind of feeling a bit down a little bit, and now all of a sudden now you feel this energy again to be an excited fan, right? Which of these announcements, made you most excited? Did you enjoy the trailers? I know I have dropped a couple of my reaction videos, but But yeah, let me know what you think. Were there announcements that you wish could have been dropped, right? I mean, we didn't get the Fantastic Forecasting for one part. We don't really have a lot more details in terms of the other, series and movies that were announced. But yeah, I mean, what do you think as well? Like, what do you hope will happen in September when they have D23? Which 8 films do you think are the missing pieces for Phase 6? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.